Hello everyone, welcome to this second video online demonstration that we're doing for Honeywell's Jade Economizer controller. For this video we're going to be talking about our status, checkout, and alarms. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, everything's been set up now. You could actually check the status of the economizer, so that's what we're going to do. First option you're going to see is economizing available? Either yes or no. For this instance, yes, it is available. And we are at the moment economizing. So you could actually check this if this were to say no, for instance, and you knew the ambient air conditions called for economizing, we would know that we're having an issue. This is whether or not the building is occupied. For a heat pump, this will tell you whether it's in cooling or heating. This is our Y1 input, so this is from the thermostat. It's calling for cooling. And our Y1 output is what's going to our first stage of mechanical cooling. So for this instance, because we're economizing, we're getting a call for cooling, but we're using our outside air to cool. So there, for Y1 out, it is off. Same thing for Y2. This is if we're now calling for a second stage of cooling. Since we're economizing, this is also off. Our mixed air temperature, we went through this in our set points. We had it at 53 degrees, so this is a good way to check to make sure it's actually maintaining at 53 degrees. Your discharge air temperature, which is after your fan, and your outside air temperature. You could also, depending on the sensor that you have, it'll show you your outside air humidity. If you have a return air temperature sensor, that would be here. And if you're tracking its humidity, it would also show you its humidity. This is your current CO2 level. As you may recall, our set point for that was 1100 ppm. So because this is less than that, our DCV status is set to off. If you have a traditional 2 to 10 actuator, 2 to 10 volts, this is what you'll see. This is your voltage out, and you can actually check that at the actuator, make sure that's what you're actually getting, so you can use it for troubleshooting. If you have a communicating economizer, you will not get this option, but you'll actually see your actuator position in terms of percentage. This is your actuator count, so this is the number of times your actuator has done 180 degrees of motion. Now that could be either fully closed at 0 degrees to all the way open, that's 180, or it could be moving 10 degrees back and forth 18 times. Next up is your actuator, whether it's okay or if it's in alarm. This is whether or not your exhaust fan has been energized. It'll tell you that it's on. If you have two-stage exhaust fan, this will say that the second stage is now on. This is whether or not your ERV is being used. This is your mechanical cooling. So the option is either 0, 1, or 2. Because we're economizing, it's 0 because we're not using any mechanical cooling. If your first stage of mechanical cooling is being utilized, you would see a 1. If you had to kick on that second compressor, you would see a 2. Next up is our fan speed, either low or high. This is if you have a 2-stage. And then also if you have a 2-stage, this is your call for heating, calling for that second stage on your fan, your high stage. Okay. Let's go ahead and move on to our checkout. This is what you can use for your troubleshooting. So this will allow you to manually adjust the actuator and check it to make sure that it's actually doing what you're telling it to do. So in this scenario, it's saying we have a CO2 sensor, so you'd be able to check your vent min and your vent max, and you would just run it and it would adjust the actuator accordingly, and you could check the voltage. If you did not have a CO2 sensor, this would just be your minimum damper position and you could check it there. You could also force the actuator to go 100% open and check it that way. Then go all the way back down to 0.0% open. This is going to turn on your first stage of cooling on your unit no matter what the ambient conditions are. This will turn on your second stage if you have one. If not, you don't have to worry about it. And this is actually aux1 out. It may look like aux10, but it's aux1 out. So whatever it is, maybe it's sending an alarm to the thermostat, you would press this button and check your thermostat to see if the alarm's actually going off over there. Okay, that's our last option there. Lastly, we'll talk about alarms. This is where you'll see if you have any kind of errors within the system. This should be the first thing that you're checking. You go in there and check. Once you've fixed it, you would go in here and say, okay, I handled it, go ahead and erase it, and it'll erase that alarm. All right, that is our second video for the Jade Economizer controller. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I look forward to teaching you again. Take care.